No, he said, why is it that, well, actually, he asked, why is it that we catch flack for saying that we don't want to be a stepdad? That's the question he asked. He didn't say, single moms beware. But y'all responded to him like he did. This goes back to the literacy crisis. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. You can support uncensored conversations via Cash App or buying your girl a coffee.
The single man who doesn't have any kids, why do we catch criticism for not wanting to commit to a woman who has kids?
Okay, so here's the thing. It's not that y'all catch criticism from not wanting to date a woman who has kids. It's that because when you don't want to date this woman who has kids, you interfere with other people wanting to date her and try to push the narrative that if she's not your type, she shouldn't be anybody else's type.
Isn't this the same thing y'all broads do when y'all get out here and tell women not to date 50-50? When y'all tell women if he doesn't make six figures, then you shouldn't date. Y'all do this left and right when it comes to men. Try to convince other women not to date men based on these stupid standards that you have. But it's a problem when men engage in that same behavior, saying what they see as a red flag. Oh, well, you're trying to deter other people from doing this, that, and the third. You're trying, bitch, that's the same thing y'all do. Y'all engage in the same behavior, but now it's a problem. It's not that you have the standard, it's that you're saying that you have the standard and you're convincing other people to have the standard. That's the same thing y'all do. Rules for thee, not for me. That is the absolute problem with the earth. Everyone has all these rules for everybody else, but when they engage in the same behavior, it's perfectly fine. I'm just letting the girlies know, or I'm just a girl. And she said this and she thinks she cooked. She really thinks she cooked. It's almost like people's brains are rewired just to like deflect, just to defend, just to do anything rather than actually think about what's being said or think about what they about to say. Because if you think about this for longer than 2 seconds, you're gonna realize that this is not a good argument, because you could say the same thing about the things broads say. Oh, you shouldn't date him because of X, Y, Z. Well, now you're pushing the narrative so that other people won't want to date them. Why don't you just keep that to yourself? Well, why don't y'all broads just keep that to yourselves? That you shouldn't date a man under 6 figures, that you shouldn't date a man who goes 50-50, that you shouldn't do this, that you shouldn't do that, that you shouldn't do this, that you shouldn't do that.
We never get mad when anybody talks about the things that they like. It's when the conversation becomes that nobody should want to be with y'all single mothers, do we start getting the backlash, right?
That's just not true. Somebody can get out here and say that I like this, that, and the third, and y'all will attack. Let a black man come out here and say that he only likes light-skinned women. Or better yet, let a black man come out here and say that he only dates white women. Doesn't say anything negative about black women, just says, I prefer to date white women. Y'all will attack. You'll call him a COON. You'll say he's a traitor just because he said he had a preference for white girls. That is a flat out lie. No, we do get triggered over people's preferences. Gaslighting. She is gaslighting this man.
Because if you don't want to date women with kids, guess what? Don't date women with kids.
Let me tell you this. I'm glad you disqualified yourself. Because single moms ain't for every man. You gotta have a certain level of responsibility, character, and intention. Let me tell you something. Single moms scare off men without motherfucking intention.
And while I do think that there are positive characteristics about men who are stepfathers and they do right by the mom and they do right by the stepchildren. However, to make it seem like a man not wanting to be with a single mom somehow lacks those other characteristics is foolishness. Just because somebody decides that they don't want to deal with somebody else's kids doesn't mean that he's lacking in character, doesn't mean that he's lacking in responsibility. It doesn't mean any of that. So to pose it as such is crazy work. It's diabolical. But I understand why he's doing that, because most of his audience probably is a bunch of single women with kids, a bunch of single moms. I wouldn't be surprised. So of course he has to pander to them. Of course he has to say all that to keep the bag going.
Let me say this, because I've been a single mother. We don't be worried about y'all. Let me say that first. Let me preface by saying that first. Y'all be summoning us. Because y'all be getting up in them comment sections and talking about us. When we be posting our kids and stuff, or when we post a man who actually wants us, y'all jump in the comment sections and call this man a simp and start antagonizing him. So then we don't have no choice but to start talking about it. Your preference is your preference. We don't care. Quite frankly, you probably shouldn't be a stepdad. you may not qualify for that.
To try to make it seem like a man is lesser because he doesn't want to be a stepdaddy is crazy work. That's the part that I'm having an issue with. It's not the fact that men who do become stepfathers and they do right by the children and the mom and all this other stuff and they have a happy home and they ride off into the sunset. I'm not saying that I have an issue with that, but what I do have an issue with is you trying to preface it like this man is crazy, like there's something wrong with him because he doesn't want to be with a single mom. There is nothing wrong with this man for having that preference, but y'all are trying to shame him for it. And see, this is what these bras are doing. They're saying, well, we're not shaming you for having that preference. And then they go and they shame him for having that preference. You see what they're doing? These bras are manipulative. Well, we're not shaming you for doing this. We're not shaming you. And then they go on and they do exactly that. They're shaming him for that, saying he's less of a man because of that. I'm sorry, but these type of heifers get on my nerves. And of course, you got the crowd clapping and cheering because they're all a bunch of single moms.
Y'all be summoning us. Because y'all be getting up in them comment sections and talking about us. When we be posting our kids and stuff, or when we post a man who actually wants us, y'all jump in the comment sections and call this man a simp and start antagonizing him.
Now, I will say, to be fair, the way people drag, what's his name? Sierra. Sierra's man? I can't even think of his name. Russell Wilson? I don't watch football. I don't know these people. The way they drag Russell Wilson and Sierra and they have their relationship and they're together, I think that's a bit weird. I'm not going to cheer on the idea of a household splitting apart. I'm not going to cheer it on because at the end of the day, they have children together, they have a home, they're married, they're doing what they have to do. I am going to hope that their relationship works out because I want that two-parent household for those babies. I want that household to survive. I want them to be good. So I'm not going to cheer on the destruction of that household because I have feelings about single moms getting with men. Like, I'm not going to do that. I do think that's weird. The way people are hyper fixated on Russell Wilson and Sierra, I do think that's weird. Let's not conflate that with a man saying that he just does not want to date a single mom for XYZ reason. And just because he has those reasons doesn't mean that there's something inherently wrong with that man for having those reasons. And not only that, these same broads will lay up with these men, have these men in and out the house, the men who are okay with single moms, but then some of these men, the reason why they're okay with single moms is because the single moms allow them to do whatever they want to the kids. These same single moms, not all of them, obviously, but some of these same single moms cheering this on will allow that man they keep bringing in the house to touch on their little girls, to touch on their little boys, their children, all for the sake of having a nigga in the house. So if anything, I'm looking at the men that are like, look, I'm not trying to deal with a single mom. At least I know for a fact that you're not trying to get with a woman so you can get to her kids. I could be nuanced in this conversation and be like, yes, I don't think that they should be attacking Russell Wilson the way that they do because they have their household. We should all be rooting for it to work out. Because if our goal as Black people is to have two-parent households, to have marriage, to have kids covered by the parents and all that other stuff, if that's what we truly want, then we should be celebrating when that is happening rather than hoping that it falls apart. Because that destruction of that household, it feeds back into the loop of us not having marriage, of us not having two-parent households, of us having broken, dysfunctional situations. While I agree that that is toxic, I also agree that it is toxic for you to shame men because they don't want to be with single moms for whatever reason. But then in the same breath, you can say, well, we're not shaming you. And then you go on to shame the man because he said his preference.
So then we don't have no choice but to start talking about it. Your preference is your preference. We don't care. Quite frankly, you probably shouldn't be a stepdad. You may not qualify for that.
Sweetie, I just be saying they not my preference. That's all I say.
Date your type.
Guess what?
That's all I say.
Date your type.
I guarantee you though, I don't be all over line. Shout out to my husband, but even before my husband, you didn't catch me online talking about what my preference was. It's my preference. Why I gotta explain it to the world? Why I gotta explain it to anybody else?
Well, because his preference don't want him.
They did this man all kinds of dirty. Let's rewind it and see what he said.
As a single man who doesn't have any kids, why do we catch criticism for not wanting to commit to a woman who has kids?
Did he say anything crazy about single moms? I want you to understand the progression of nonsense that happened here. At first, this broad, where is she? This broad said, we don't care that you have preferences. It's that you're discouraging other people. He's not discouraging other people. He's just saying that that was his preference. That's what he said in the beginning. He doesn't want to date a single mom. Well, we don't care that that's your preference. Just don't tell other people not to do that. that? Is he or is he not telling other people not to do that? No. So now we got to move the goalpost to, well, why are you saying your preferences in the first place? Broad. Are you getting on here and telling her you shouldn't be saying what your preference is? That's your preference. Why aren't you keeping that to yourself? No, it's yes, girl. You should have those standards. You should have those preferences. They'll get on here and do all this when a woman says her preferences. You're not telling him the same thing that you just told that man. See, nobody keeps that same energy, and that is why I go crazy. It's a bunch of rules for thee, not for me. I'm gonna say whatever sounds good in the moment, but I'm not gonna actually have that principle, because in the next moment where it applies the same way, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna keep that same energy, because rules for thee, not for me. It's okay when I do it. It's wrong when you do it. So when these same broads get up here and they say their preference for a man, and you don't shame them the same way you just shamed that man, I'm looking at you sideways. You're full of cap. He did not say anything crazy about single moms. He did not get on here and say, yeah, these single moms, they all irresponsible and they're all a bunch of hoes and they're this and they're that and they're this and they're that. No, he just said that that's his preference. And at first you're like, well, it's okay that you have that preference, but just don't try to tell other people. He wasn't telling other people. He wasn't saying, yeah, y'all shouldn't date single moms. That's not what he did. He didn't grab his microphone and say, don't date single moms. You act like that's what he got up there and said. Do not date single moms. No, he said, why is it that, well, actually he asked, why is it that we catch flack for saying that we don't want to be a stepdad? That's the question he asked. He didn't say, single moms beware. But y'all responded to him like he did. This goes back to the literacy crisis. He asked, as a single man, why do I catch flack for not wanting to date single moms? They heard, single moms are bad. Never date single moms. That's what they heard, even though that's not what he said. Because people get triggered by words. They get triggered and then they don't hear anything you said. They start making up arguments in their mind based on the trigger words that you said, because they don't know how to listen and they don't know how to comprehend. It always goes back to the literacy crisis every single time. And they're probably triggered because they were single moms. She said she was a single mom. I don't know about this broad, but the other broad, she says she was a single mom. So of course she's triggered. If you say anything about something that relates to her identity or past identity, then that means you're saying something mean about her rather than looking at the nuance. If you truly felt this way, that you didn't care that his preference was not to date single moms, you wouldn't be sneak dissing him, making statements about his character. You wouldn't be doing that. You feel the need to do that because you're triggered. A hit dog is hollering. A hit dog is absolutely hollering.
When we post a man who actually wants us, y'all jump in the comment sections and call this man a simp and start antagonizing him. So then we don't have no choice but to start talking about it. Your preference is your preference. We don't care. Quite frankly, you probably shouldn't be a stepdad. You may not qualify for that.
Matey, I just be saying they not my preference. That's all I say.
Hold on, are you?
Date your type.
That's all I say.
Date your type.
I guarantee you though, I don't be all over line. Shout out to my husband, but even before my husband, you didn't catch me online talking about what my preference was. It's my preference. Why I gotta explain it to the world? Why I gotta explain it to anybody else?
Well, because his preference don't want him.
He's the simp. It's because his preference don't want him. He's kowtowing to the audience of single moms, but she's gonna shame this man for having his preference. And he's gonna back it up because that's what's gonna pay the bills. That's what's gonna keep these single moms tuning in to tonight's conversation. It's because it's an echo chamber of things that's gonna make them feel good about themselves and their predicaments.
Because if your preference wanted you wouldn't even care about what your non-preference wanted.
What? First of all, that doesn't even make any... When did he say that he cares what his non-preference wants? When exactly did he say that he cares about what his non-preference wants? All he said was that he doesn't like the fact that he gets criticized for having his preference. He didn't say anything about what the non-preference wants. See, this is what I'm talking about. Literacy crisis. That man did not say any of that. That has nothing to do with what he said. Straw man after straw man after straw man. Because they don't understand what the hell he said. And what's crazy is he didn't even say that much. He didn't even say, this man used simple English in simple, small sentences, and they still have no idea what this man said. That's why they're responding like this. See, this is how you end up with these broads saying that Shrek was a cautionary tale, because they don't understand words. They don't understand that when you put words together, they mean something, but if you switch the words around, they mean something else. They don't understand that. They just think once you hear these key words, then you understand exactly what it means, devoid of context. Context does not matter. It doesn't matter where you place the words. It's just the fact that those words were present. Don't, date, and single mom. Doesn't matter if there were other words that filled in the blanks. All they heard was don't date single moms. That's all they heard. They didn't hear any of the context. Well, why do we catch flack when, as a single man with no children, when we say we don't want to date single moms, why is it that we catch flack for that preference? All they heard was don't date single moms. Literacy crisis every single time. You cannot shame somebody into dating you. You can't. And that's essentially what they're trying to do. And look at her. She feels so affirmed. She's like, yeah. Because she has this sympathy sip co-signing what she said. The level of gaslighting is just astronomical. He did not deserve that. He got a broken arm and everything. They really tried to make him out to be the bad guy when he didn't say anything crazy. The guy asked, why is he getting criticism? And they went on to answer with criticism. Why am I getting criticized? And then they just went on to criticize him. Yeah, everyone sounds bothered. How are you mad at a dude for addressing the elephant in the room? I can't with this. These people are gonna drive me nuts.